Mm-mm. All right. All right. All right. Hopefully, this is good. I apologize for the quality. I'm actually on a personal retreat starting today until Thursday. I just needed to take some time and just reflect on what I'm doing. So, like, I'm grateful for that. So, I won't do after today. I'm not going to do a video until at least Thursday. But I was supposed to do this yesterday and I didn't get a chance to do it because, quite frankly, I was going to do it at 5 p.m. and I was taking a nap, baby. After sermon nap. That's how you do it. All right. We're going to have a conversation, and I'm almost positive, whenever I do a video, it's really funny. Whenever I do a video on politics or if I critique conservatives, I lose between 4 to 6 people every time I do it. It's really weird. But it's like, man, I can't break 4,300 subscribers. It's really funny. But anyway, all right, let's have this conversation. I need to bring this up because I think this is wild. And some of you probably think because I'm black and I'm big that I'm woke when I push back against conservative. And it couldn't be further from the truth. I didn't support Black Lives Matter, the movement. I couldn't stand the agenda, none of it. I've never voted Democrat in my life. But I am a black man. But this has nothing to do with a black man. This has to do with, as a believer, I want to highlight to you, because a lot of my friends are Christians and they're conservative, and they listen to guys like a Ben Shapiro and so forth. And that's fine if you want to do that. But we need to have a conversation, all right? A real conversation. And I just, you take what I show you for what it's worth. If you agree, you agree. If you don't, you don't. All right? First things first, welcome to CNN. I'm your host, the underdog, Kirk Kennedy. Let's go in. On this channel, we take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them. All right? I'm in a hotel room. I'm on a personal retreat, but I didn't record yesterday. So I said, let me at least record today. And then I'm dark until Thursday. All right? I am already dark. I get it. I know. All right. So here's we're going to start with this. So Ben Shapiro, shortly after being at Donald Trump's, it wasn't a State of the Union. Maybe it was a State of the Union address. They kept calling it him addressing Congress, but I guess it was a State of the Union address. But I don't remember being called State of the Union, but I don't know. What do I know? And, Ben Shapiro was there. He was sitting beside Riley Gaines, a woman who has been a staunch antagonist towards the pro-trans athlete, men who are biological men who identify as women who are competing in women's sports and crushing them because they just have bone density, stronger, all of it, right? I don't understand this. Like, why can't trans people just compete with other trans people? I don't understand that. I don't understand, because in all honesty, we don't really believe that that's true, because we don't put those people in prisons. You don't put a trans woman in a woman's prison. It's really fascinating. But that's a different conversation. That's not what we're talking about. So anyway, so he was there. And then shortly after that, Ben Shapiro said, we need to pardon Derek Chauvin. And Elon Musk on X responded, we should consider that, right? And a lot of people have been speculating as to why would Ben Shapiro say, let's pardon Derek Chauvin, all right? I think I understand why he's saying it, and I could be totally wrong. But I want to just give you my thoughts. And I try to speak as a believer almost all the time. Obviously, we live in the world. We're not of the world. So my culture is, I'm black, and I'm going to speak to those things as well sometimes too. I'm a pastor. I'm a Christian. I still do music. So I'm working on my last album, which When the Dead Are Alive, which I hope you all support, coming out in probably May or June. But when you're black and in this nation, we've gotten so politicized that you can't criticize anything, no matter what you say. How you look and what you say will determine what side of the political spectrum you're on. So we make it very clear. I didn't vote. I don't vote. I don't care. I don't trust the left or the right. I've never voted Democrat, and I don't trust the Republicans, and I won't vote them either. I'm done. I'm waiting until Jesus comes back. It is what it is. But I pray for our nation. I pray for our leaders and so forth. All right? So if you call me woke, you're calling me woke because you don't like what I'm saying, not because that's actually what I am. All right? Having said that, let's have a real conversation. Ben Shapiro wants to pardon Derek Chauvin, okay? This is a big problem for many reasons, but the main reason why this is a big problem is not what most people are going to say, what I'm going to say in this video. Most people are going to say, oh, because of the race wars and black people were riot, all those things may be absolutely true. There's another reason why, a bigger problem, I think Ben Shapiro it's really sad to see this, because I'll be honest with you. There were times I actually thought Ben Shapiro had things to say that I agree with. He's quick with it. I think because he's quick and he's fast and he talks like this and he's very quick. And same with Candace Owens. You think everything they say is true because of the way they talk, and that's not always true, right? They're good at talking over and quicker than most people, and so you end up listening rather than actually pushing back and thinking about what's being said. But I still have liked a lot of things that Ben Shapiro has said in the past. But this idea of Derek Chauvin was kind of troubling for many reasons. But first, to understand what the concern is, let's first get to know Derek Chauvin, all right? Because here is the reason why Ben Shapiro and others are saying, let's pardon Derek Chauvin. Now, if you don't know who Derek Chauvin is, you may have been under a rock for the last couple of years, but maybe not. But I'll tell you who Derek Chauvin is in 1 second. Let me tell you why I think he's saying this. Because right now, the political system that we're into has drastically changed. We went from voting for people who could work across the aisle, bipartisan in their politics, to now whoever wins is trying to destroy the other side. They're trying to undo everything. So they don't care if it affects people, they don't care about working together. They care about dismantling the other side. And the left did it. That's what the left did. And the right's doing. Trump's doing it right now. That's why all these hiring and firings, all this stuff, even if some of it is wisdom, the way that they're going about it is really to just mock the Democratic Party. And so that's what's happened. And even people of goodwill, people who are believers, are falling into this us versus them. We got to destroy our enemies, which is unbiblical at its finest. So this idea of pardoning Derek Chauvin from Ben Shapiro, he believes that Derek Chauvin was given a sham trial, and because of the pressure of the Black Lives Matter movement, that he's basically a martyr as a police officer. If you don't know who he was, Derek Chauvin was, well, let's get to know him. All right, so let's talk about Derek Chauvin. Derek Chauvin was sentenced to 21 years in prison on federal civil rights charges related to George Floyd's death. All right, so remember 2020, this is the cop who had his knee on George Floyd's neck for over 8 minutes and 42 seconds, I believe. George Floyd died, and he was sentenced to 21 years on federal civil rights charges and 22 and a half years by the state of Minnesota on charges which he's currently serving right now. Ben Shapiro is saying that Donald Trump should, he's calling for Donald Trump to pardon his federal charges, all right? So here's what he was sentenced to by the federal government, right? He received a 252-month sentence, 21 years in federal prison. The judge gave Chauvin credit for 7 months of time already served, resulting in an actual sentence of 245, so approximately 20 and a half years. The federal sentence is to be served concurrently with his 22 and a half year state sentence for murder, all right? The federal sentence adds a few years to Chauvin's overall prison time, all right? So what's happening here is Ben Shapiro is thinking that they should, that Trump should basically pardon him because he feels like his federal sentence was a sham. It was a hoax of the left. This is what he's saying, all right? Now, the thing is, his charges, federal charges, run concurrent with his state charges. Let me explain to you what concurrent means, all right? Because this is very important. Concurrent, in the context of prison sentences, means that multiple sentences are served at the same time rather than one after the other, specifically. So this is actually very good. Like if you're a criminal and you get 2 charges or multiple charges, but they're going to run concurrent, what you don't want is for them to run consecutive. Speaking as someone who was locked up and who knows the law, if they run consecutive, that means when you finish the first one, you start the second one, right? When they run concurrent, it means they happen at the same time. So you're basically going to prison for however many that you're serving, and whatever the longest time is what you're going to end up doing, right? So let me prove it to you. When sentences are concurrent, they run alongside each other, starting from the same point in time. The prisoner serves the longest of the concurrent sentences, effectively reducing the total time spent in prison compared to if they were served consecutively. For example, if someone receives concurrent sentences of 5 years and 3 years, they would serve a total of 5 years, not 8 years, all right? So hopefully that makes sense, right? So Derek Chauvin was actually given a gift because they ran concurrent. If they would have run consecutive, then once he did 22 years in the state, he would have had to serve another 20. but because he's doing them together, he's basically not serving any federal time. The only way he would get federal time served is if he gets out early because of state time. Like say he gets out after 13 years of state, then he'd have to serve a couple of years of the federal. So Ben Shapiro's advocating that he was railroaded because of Black Lives Matter. And this has been a narrative that a lot of people from Candace Owens and on have talked about, all right? But did the evidence really prove that George Floyd died of fentanyl and not Derek Chauvin's knee on his neck? And here's what it says. No, the evidence in George Floyd's case did not show that fentanyl, rather than Derek Chauvin's case, was the primary cause of Floyd's death. However, you listen to Ben Shapiro, they'll make it seem like that was the case. It wasn't actually the case. Multiple medical experts and the official autopsy results concluded that Floyd, due to police restraint with drug use listed as a contributing factor, but not the main cause. Specifically, the Hennepin County medical examiner, Dr. Andrew Baker, ruled Floyd's death a homicide, listing the cause as cardiopulmonary arrest complicating law enforcement, subdual restraint, and neck compression. Dr. Martin Tobin, a pulmonary critical care doctor, testified that Floyd died from a low level of oxygen due to Chauvin's knee restraint, stating that even a healthy person subjected to what Mr. Floyd was subjected to would have died. Dr. Lindsay Thomas, a forensic pathologist, agreed with Baker's finding and stated that the pulmonary mechanism of death is asphyxia or low oxygen, all right? So the reality is Ben Shapiro, the purpose of him saying that George Floyd, Derek Chauvin should be released is because he feels like the trial showed that Floyd's death was really the result of drugs that were in his system and not Derek Chauvin's reality. So let me say real quick, I mentioned this in my last video. Here's part of the reason why I have a problem with Ben Shapiro saying this and doing this. This isn't the main point. What I'm about to show you, you're going to see it for yourself. You can disagree with me, but I'm just going to show you yourself in just a minute. But one of the reasons why I have a problem with even Ben Shapiro's whole logic of wokeness, here's one of the reasons why I have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with the concept of woke, all right? I think there are some people who function in that way, okay? But here's the other reality. Ben Shapiro, if Black people are woke when they speak about injustices against Black people, then he's no different when he does it for Jewish people. I'm not going to show you a video that I could on YouTube to expose this because I might get, it's one of those YouTube accounts that have a lot of followers and I could get flagged or something for content, infringement or whatever. But it's clear, like Ben Shapiro cares just as much about, where's my computer being stuck? Ben Shapiro cares just as much about the Jewish community as Black people care about them. You can't tell Ben Shapiro anything. I mean, remember the beef with him and Candace Owens? That beef with him and Candace Owens is largely because she criticized Israel's because of what happened to Palestinian children, and he flipped. And now Candace Owens that was a big deal. And now she's back saying more things about Daily Wire because of this whole Christ the King thing that came out last year. Ben Shapiro is just as woke for Jewish people as Black people are for themselves. And no one knows, but he demands that everyone agree and side with them. And as Christians, because Jesus was Messiah, we have an affection to some degree for the Jews. So we tend to think whatever they do is justified as if this is the Old Testament. This is not the Old Testament. God is not telling any Jews to go and kill the surrounding nations, right? That's a whole different time period. This is not that, right? Jesus came and died for the Palestinians as well as the Jews and so forth. So there's this idea among believers, and that's what they play on. We think that we're supposed to support whatever they do, no matter what they do, because Jesus was Israeli, and that's not true. That's not true at all. Jesus' ethnicity has little to do with, but he died for everyone, right? Jesus died for the world, not just the Jews, right? It's not that way. Otherwise, you and I wouldn't be saved unless we converted to Judaism. So one of the problems I have with Ben Shapiro is there's hypocrisy there. You decry every time Black people say something, but then you get offended when anyone says something about the Jews. And it's like, brother, we don't have to all agree with you or that the Jews are just innocent in everything they do. It doesn't mean they're guilty either, but that's just, we're allowed to have an opinion that's different than Ben Shapiro. All right. But the thing is, though, he gives this impression like, and here's the thing, he gives this impression of Derek Chauvin that like he got shafted. But here's the reality about Derek Chauvin. And here's the reality of the way the justice system works, right? Sometimes you get convicted for other things that you did, not what you did. Let me give you an example of this. When O.J. Simpson was acquitted from, or not acquitted, whatever it was, whatever it was, I can't remember, it was acquitted. It was not guilty, yeah. For Nicole Brown, right? Everyone thought he did it. All the people I knew, I thought he did it. We were getting high watching the trial. I wasn't a believer back then. And when he was not guilty, we celebrated, not because we thought he was innocent, but because, wow, the black dude got off. He beat the system, for the death of a white woman with blonde hair, like the typical, right? And OJ wasn't a real black dude. He got off, but people couldn't believe it. Years later, he got convicted of some other crime, and he got the book thrown at him. I'm talking about the maximum sentence you could get for that crime. And I think everyone even said this was kind of payback for him getting acquitted before. The way the law works sometimes is if you like prime example, another example that's older. Al Capone was a notorious gangster, right? Notorious Chicago gangster. Al Capone made his name, right? The thing was, though, it was hard for them to get him, so they got him on like tax evasion. They smoked him with something that was not even close to what he was guilty of, right? They smoked, they couldn't get the other stuff. They were trying to get it, but people were scared. So they got him on tax evasion, and he ended up catching a disease and dying in prison. That's how they got him. They smoked him. They gave him the most time they could give him because they knew he was guilty of all these other things. This is what happens in the justice system, whether we like it or not. So when Derek Chauvin was tried, even if he thought he was guilty, here's the reality about Derek Chauvin, the police officer. These are some stats from his life. It says this: Derek Chauvin had 18 complaints on his official record during his career with the Minneapolis Police Department, with only two out of 18 resulting in discipline, letters of reprimand. Some sources indicate he had at least 22 complaints or internal investigations during his more than 19 years at the department. Chauvin was involved in several notable incidents prior to Floyd's death. In 2006, he was one of 6 officers who shot and killed Wayne Reyes. Now, we don't know I don't know whether it was justified or not, but these are things that were complaints against him. In 2008, he shot Ira Latrell Tolles during a domestic violence call. In 2017, he restrained a 14-year-old boy for several minutes, using his knee on the boy's back and hitting him with a flashlight. A 2020 incident, right, involving Patty Day, months before Floyd's death, resulted in a federal lawsuit. Chauvin allegedly used excessive force by throwing Day to the ground and pressing his knee into her back while she was handcuffed. Since 2015, Chauvin is reportedly on record for kneeling on people's necks and or putting them in chokeholds at least 6 times. Despite this history, Chauvin faced with little disciplinary action for these incidents. The lack of accountability for these prior complaints has been cited as a systemic issue within the Minneapolis Police Department. Okay. So here's the reality. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because when George Floyd died, Candace Owens, Ben Shapiro, and all the Megyn Kelly, all the conservatives pulled up his criminal record. Well, he's done this, and he's done that, and he's done this, and almost wanted us to feel like, oh, he should have died then because he sold drugs or he robbed a woman. I'm not saying he was a good dude. I'm just saying so let's pull up Derek Chauvin's history and look at that. 20-something complaints. Listen. If you were taking your child, if you have children, and you were taking your child to a pediatrician who's been doing it for over 20 years, and they had to do a surgery, your child got evaluated, and they said, listen, we got to do a surgery, right? We got to do a surgery on the child. Dr. such and such has been doing this for 20 years. He could take care of it, right? Then you say, okay, all right, well, I appreciate that. You do some research, and you find out that in the 20 years that this doctor has been practicing, he has 18 complaints against him and only 2 of them were actually any disciplinary action, which were just letters, right? And some of those complaints were excessive mishandling of the people during surgery. Would you take your kid, would you allow your child to go to that surgeon? No, you would not. No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't allow your loved one, your spouse, your parent, no one, if you had that many complaints. But somehow as a police officer, you can have that many complaints and still be seen as an upstanding. I couldn't have that. I haven't had that many complaints as a pastor. And I've been a pastor for 17 years. I can't think of 18 solid complaints against me from members of the church. That's just not reality, right? But that's not what I want to just give you that background so you can understand this. Here's the real problem with what Ben Shapiro was doing. There's another problem here. This whole idea of pardon Derek Chauvin, there's a deeper problem, and this is what I want to say what Ben Shapiro is really up to, all right? So this wasn't like a Freudian slip or nothing. Ben Shapiro, it really said pardon, and he has a movement, a campaign called Pardon Derek Chauvin, all right? There's a campaign that he has. Here's the website, pardonderek.com. I don't know how well you can see this, but essentially it says, pardon Derek Chauvin, sign the petition, first name, last name, email, a box that says accept terms and conditions, and then another box that says sign the petition with some very tiny writing underneath. And then it has a letter to Donald Trump basically saying this. Dear President Trump, I'm not going to read the whole thing. You'll get the gist of it. We urge you to immediately issue a pardon for Officer Derek Chauvin, who was unjustly convicted and is currently serving a 22-year and a half sentence for the murder of George Floyd and associated federal charges. As you know, this was the inciting event for the BLM riots that caused $2 billion in property damage in cities across the United States and set America race relations on their worst footing in recent memory. Yet the event evidence demonstrates that Derek Chauvin did not murder George Floyd. That's not true. George Floyd was high on fentanyl, he had a pre-existing condition, all that, all right? Then he goes on to say, make no mistake, Derek Chauvin conviction represents a defining achievement of the woke movement in American politics. The country cannot turn the page on the dark, divisive, and racist era without fighting this terrible wrong. So this is what Ben Shapiro put on his site, all right? Here are the 2 problems with this reality. The first is this. Derek Chauvin was charged on state charges, and he got sentenced to 22 and a half years state and 20 and a half years federal. His time is running concurrent at the same time. If Trump can't pardon, he can't do anything with the states. Federal and state are separate. So he could only pardon Derek Chauvin on the federal charges. Ben Shapiro knows this. He has a law degree from Harvard. So even if Donald Trump, right, were to pardon Derek Chauvin's federal charges, he is still serving time for 22 and a half years in the state for murder, right? So on one level, there's nothing that changes in Derek Chauvin's life because he's not going to do the federal time consecutively. He's doing it the same time he's on the state time. And since the state time is longer, unless he gets out early, pardoned early, if he gets on parole, then he would go do federal time for a couple of years at the most. If you remove the federal time, it doesn't change anything about his life. It doesn't, because it's running concurrent. His state time is longer. He's going to do whatever that state time is. So let's just say Trump did do that. It doesn't change anything for Ben Shapiro knows this. Ben knows that if he pardons him, it doesn't do anything, right? Right? But then you got to think, why would Ben Shapiro do this right now? Like, Ben Shapiro has to know that black people would be really offended. And he's making it seem like that George Floyd was only convicted because of BLM, as if he doesn't have an extensive complaint list, right? But here's the deeper problem with Ben Shapiro and why I'm bringing this up. Everything I've said, I just want to give you background for a reason. But everything I said, here's the real problem with Ben Shapiro wanting to pardon Derek Chauvin. If you look at this website, look at it. Pardon, really big, Derek Chauvin. Sign the petition in red. First name, last name, email. A box that says terms and conditions, right? and then your big box that says sign the petition, and then a little tiny writing underneath, and then back to big writing there, okay? Here's what I'm talking about. Let's read the little tiny writing. I'm gonna try to make this bigger. Let's read the little tiny writing under sign the petition. What does this say, right? Look what it says. By clicking here, you consent to receive emails featuring news and special offers from Daily Wire and our sponsors, okay? Now, I made this huge on the screen so you could read it. This text right here, this text that Ben Shapiro has on his website, Pardon Derek Chauvin, is the smallest text on the page. You have to actually zoom in or put on glasses to read what it says. If I put this back in normal terms, watch this. This is the normal size of it. Here's the normal size of it. Look how tiny that text is. You click on everything else, you click on sign the petition, and when you do it, you're automatically signing up to get promotional offers from Daily Wire so that they can make money and try to get you to do it. I don't know Ben Shapiro's heart. I don't know his motives or none of that. So I'm not going to pretend like I do. But I'm also not going to pretend like this doesn't appear to look like a hustle to me. You ever pulled up to a gas station? Oh my gosh, $2.89. Shoot, I'm going there. The last place was $3.39. And then when you get up to the pump and you see it's $3.19, you're like, what? And it was $2.89 with car wash. You know what I'm saying? And you're like, man, and you end up getting gas because you're already there, right? You know that little hustle. Oh, when when you see like a big sale, up to 80% off, the up to is real small, right? It says 80% off. You're like, oh, shoot, 80% off. You forget the up to. Do you know what up to 80% off could be? 2%, 3%, 4%, 5%. It's up to 80. It's not 80%, right? This is classic marketing. I'm not even blaming Ben Shapiro for that. My concern is this. You are trying to make it seem like you care about Derek Chauvin, but the smallest text on the website says by clicking here, you consent. You consenting to. So if you click sign the petition, Ben Shapiro knows there's a lot of people that follow him. There's like 8 million people subscribed. On YouTube. He's a big dog. A lot of people listen to Ben Shapiro, trust him, and like him. And if you sign it, the petition, you get emails featuring news and special offers from Daily Wire. I could be wrong, but here's what I've heard in my research. The Daily Wire is struggling, right? Candace Owens leaving, and that big blowback between Candace Owens and Daily Wire has affected their bottom line for sure. Has affected it. Candace Owens was a big draw for them. Big draw. They underestimated the power of Candace Owens. And Candace Owens said she was encouraged to say negative things about Black people and Black Lives Matter. Not that she didn't agree with those things, but it was very encouraged. She was really appalled that her disagreeing with some things about what Jewish people were doing would lead to her being, she was very appalled. And has even said this in one of her most recent. Go look, I don't follow her a lot, but I was like, let me watch Candace Owens on it because she's bringing this stuff up again. Like I think yesterday or the day before, she posted an episode talking about this stuff and about how she's being attacked by the Daily Wire again. Apparently, Daily Wire is losing money. That's what they're thinking. And let me tell you something. I don't know if you know this. I'm sure you do because you people are smarter than me. But media companies have stockholders, and they go to their stockholders and ask for money so that they can do other things to make money back for the stockholders. That's how it works. After a while, if you keep going to the board, the people who own the stocks, and say we need more money, but they're not generating income, they're going to say, you know what? It's time to sell. We're not giving more money. We need to sell right now and make back whatever some of our losses. Apparently, Daily Wire is in some financial trouble. This is apparently. I could be wrong. I'm not going to go that deep until I get more subscribers. So then all of a sudden, right after this thing with Trump, you get this pardon Derek Chauvin thing that sounds like just a Freudian slip, and then it becomes a movement. And on the website, you have a button that if people click it, they're going to get promotional offers from the Daily Wire, hoping that people will spend money to get the content from Daily Wire that they got, riding on the coattails of Ben Shapiro, the hero against the wokeness. I just think it's a hustle, brothers and sisters. And I could be wrong. I'm not judging his motive. I'm judging a tree by the fruit that it bears. Whenever you see all that fine, he could have put, and you could say, well, they got to put, that print could be just as big. And look at this. Look at this one more time. Why couldn't it be just as big as the accept terms and conditions? Usually, it may look the same here, but it's not. Go to pardonderek.com and look at how small the language is. Accept terms and conditions is usually the smallest print on the page. You know, it's usually. But this is this. You're going to get promotional offers if you do it. I'll tell you what. I could be wrong. Could be just a website issue. I don't think it is. I don't think so. But I do think, one, there's nothing to gain by pardoning Derek Chauvin. Ben Shapiro knows that. Except you're going to alienate more people. You're going to make more people angry that he got pardoned for that. You're going to reignite people, the thing that you want, and you want that. I think Ben Shapiro may want that. I watched PBD, Pat Ben David or whatever. I watched a bunch of people from conservative, they were talking about this. And even on the show, even on PBD, that's Valuetainment, that's a conservative joint. They were like, one of the dudes, like, man, I don't know what he's doing this for. What's the benefit of this? And I was thinking this, I was like, wow, I'm surprised to hear this dude saying that. He's saying the same thing I was thinking. Well, I think he thinks Ben Shapiro's trying to start a race war. I don't think that. I think Ben Shapiro is trying to capitalize, because if he pardons him, then people are going to get upset. Ben Shapiro builds more content against woke stuff. People support Ben Shapiro because he's one of the leading voices doing it. And then you subscribe and you get promotional deals and you do that. And then the stock of the company rises and it makes the stockholders happy. I could be judging them, but this is how business is done in America. Western free market capitalism. Hats off to them. But don't use and don't play with people's ethnicities, Mr. Shapiro, because you get offended when people say things about Jewish people that are often true. You get offended. And if I didn't think I'd get a copyright strike, man, would I show you this video that someone else did that just demonstrates that completely. This is why, as a believer, I can't trust any of them. I don't trust the left or the right. I do not. They all lie to us. Democrats lie to black people. Republicans lie to Christians. I'm just not going for it. And people can unsubscribe if you need to. I get it. I lose 5 to 6 subscribers every time I do a video like this. And I don't care, because I'm about truth. I'm not about camaraderie. I'm not about allegiance to a party. I'm allegiance to a person, Jesus. And so this is all a smokescreen to me. I could be wrong. I don't know Ben Shapiro's heart, but I think this is a bad move. And I think it looks like a hustle to me on the website. But what do I know? What do I know? I'm on a retreat. I need to spend time with the Lord, and I'm sitting here messing with y'all. Let's go to the tape. Let's see what we're doing right now. Yo, you made it to another line. That's what's up. Appreciate it. Pastor Kurt, aka Underdog. That's how we do it. What's up, Caleb? What's good, baby? Happy retreat. Thank you, man. Thank you, Miss Melody. I'm looking forward to it. Ben is bugging. 100%. Elon is bugging too. 100%. No way in the world Chauvin should be pardoned. We should be praying for him and for his soul to be redeemed through Christ. But that was murder. 100%. Ben is symptomatic of part of what's wrong with conservatives. 100%. Conversely, why people Don Lemon are symptom. Okay, I see what you're trying to say. Symptomatic of what's going. 100%. I agree with you, brother. I agree. Will you one day do a video on Ali Beth Stuckey's book, Toxic Empathy, please? You know what? Yeah, you know what? I'm glad you said this, bro. It's time to do a video on Ali Beth Stuckey. You know, and I don't like to go after people, but it's time to do a video on her. I think she's on deck. I think she's next. Yeah, Toxic Empathy. She professes to be a believer, but is very theological. Oh my gosh, brother. I mean, she is one of the most theological people I've ever. It's time to do a video on Ali Beth Stuckey. Coming up. Blessings and hello to everyone. 100%. Hello. I'd rather listen to a doctor than one who pretends to be one than Ben Shapiro. 100%. Ben Shapiro he's not a lawyer, but he did stay in the Holiday Inn last night, right? This is just reality. Why do they even make the distinction with concurrent and consecutive? It is to make the record worse. I know very little about the penal system. No, the reason why they do that is oftentimes if someone is convicted of a crime that is similar, they actually do it to serve, well, there's two things. They do it to serve the criminal, actually, to give them sort of some reprieve, but also taxpayers. They do it because, look, we may not think this way, but we pay for the, I mean, most prisons are privately owned. So, you know, you got to pay, there's a lot of money that it takes. I mean, how do you think these prisoners, they have a place to live? They have to get fed. They have to, you know, they have to have certain conditions and rights. They have medical, where do these come from? These come from a lot of taxpayers' dollars. So on one level, they're trying to do it to define taxpayer, right? So that's why. Why don't they ever define woke? They don't, because they know that woke was used. They don't want to define it because woke was used back in the day when there was systemic racism. It was used by Black people to say, hey, pay attention, like look alive, like these people, heads up, right? It was a term. They're using it now, and this is what always happens. And this is the problem. Well, I think America, like, this is why I think God's judgment is on America, which is the video I said not too long ago. Listen, don't be ashamed of your past. You know, they don't have any problem highlighting the shames of Black people, like don't be ashamed of it. Look, America is a great country. We've been through a lot. I don't think it's the country that we think it is. I don't think it's a Christian nation. No, but it's a great country. I love my country. I love America, right? But we pledge allegiance to the flag, right? That's what they want you to do. And the ideals of America as a Christian nation were never lived out in obedience. America is a Christian nation by profession. Now, it may be more Christian in terms of obedience now to certain denominations and people, but American history is not replete with obedience to Jesus Christ, but more the decimation of the second greatest commandment. I don't know why people think you can use the Bible to sin against God and what he commands, and there'll be no consequences. And this is the problem with conservatives. They think that what's happening is a woke agenda, a leftist agenda. And I think what's happening is the reality of you mocked God for a long time. God doesn't, think about this. Think how long it takes God to actually punish. God doesn't punish people quickly. Maybe in the wilderness, when they sinned a little bit, God will send some snakes, some burning serpents to bite people and kill them or swallow the ground up. But a lot of time, God would send prophets to warn Israel, and they wouldn't be taken for years, decades, 100, 200 years later, here comes the pain. I just think it's unrealistic for a Christian nation to assume that you can use the Bible to sin and oppress people, and then you change a couple of laws and then say, okay, we're done now. Stop complaining about it, get over it. That's not how God works. It's not how he works. Floyd killed himself, too much fentanyl. Well, the courts seem to disagree with you, Carmen. Courts seem to disagree with you. That's not what they said. That's not what they said at all. So Chauvin had no contribution to his death. Floyd was a criminal with a criminal history a mile long. And I just showed you Derek Chauvin. So do you feel differently? Would you go to a doctor and let him operate on you after 20 years, but had 18 complaints against him, and some of them with excessive malpractice, and he was never, would you let him operate on you? You would not, Carmen. This is what I mean. And I don't know what you believe, Carmen, if you're a believer or not, but this idea was a criminal with a criminal history a mile long, that as if that justifies anything. But what does that justify? So he's still made in God's image. It doesn't matter if he's a criminal. Shoot, I was a criminal. A lot of people were criminals. And if we take away the criminals, you're sinful. You are a sinner deserving of God's wrath. Should God say, let's look at all the sins that you've committed and send you to hell without any grace? That would be terrible. No, God provided Jesus Christ as a sacrifice for your criminal history to him, and says you can, if you're a Christian, shame on you for saying that because he has a criminal history, that somehow you are actually part of the problem. That is the problem. Where is the made in God's image? That is ridiculous. This is the problem I have with conservatives. You don't even know what a Christian is. You don't know what a Christian is. A Christian doesn't choose people's sides based on their history. Jesus said that when Jesus was eating with, remember when he was eating with tax collectors, and the Pharisees were like, why is he eating with tax collectors and sinners? And Jesus says, look, he said, look, it is not the healthy that need a doctor, but the sick. He said, go and learn what this means. I desire mercy and not sacrifice. Carmen, I don't know you well, but you sound like a Pharisee. You sound like a Pharisee. When in Luke 9, when Jesus sent two disciples to go into Samaria and say, hey, see if we can cut through to Jerusalem instead of going all the way around, and they came back and said, nah, we can't do that. They won't let us go through because they know we're going to Jerusalem. Should we call down fire from heaven? It says Jesus rebuked them in Luke 9. Luke chapter 10, he tells the story, a parable of the Good Samaritan. He actually honors the people who just denied him access to go through. That's what it means to love your neighbor, not put in all caps, he's a criminal with a history. You have a criminal history with God too. And if God put in all caps your sin, it would be curtains for you. Shame on you, Carmen, if you're a believer. If you're not, then you have a criminal history and you're going to stand before God and he's going to show you within all caps. And I promise you, you're going to scream and cry for the same grace that George Floyd was when he was saying, I can't breathe. Mama, mama. Please, this is I'm the wrong person to say that stuff to. It's puzzling to me that a person from a people group that experienced such prejudice would have more compassion for Black folks. Some Jews do. 100%, I agree with that. I agree with that. It's puzzling to me. Yeah, you said that. Okay, good, Melody. I agree with that totally. I meant surprise. Right, I agree. Great points. Thank you, Kyle. Appreciate it. Melody, our host just quoted the official reason for his death, 100%. She might have just came on. She needs to go back and watch the video possibly. Great analogy. Thank you, Rich. Appreciate it. No one pays attention to BS. I take him as a joke. His anti-Black racism is hilarious. To some, but there are millions of people that bang with him, though. But I feel you, I feel you, but not always. You definitely exposed Ben Shapiro's hypocrisy. Oh, man, I could show you so much more, but I don't want to get a copyright strike by using other people's video. But, bro, let me tell you, that's why I don't trust none of them. I get it. I'm not telling you not to be like, I'm saying vote your conscience, but don't lose your conscience for a vote. Don't lose your humanity for political insanity. Don't do it. If you're a Republican, vote Republican. I don't care who's on the ticket. If you're a Democrat, all of us are going to stand before God and give an account. But don't lose the moral fabric of your faith because you're angry at what other people do. Jesus said, God's word is clear. Like these people, right? These people are to be treated with respect. The golden rule. So whatever you wish others would do to you, do also to them. There's no exemptions. It's not like unless they vote differently than you, unless they have a criminal history, that's just not how it works. I just think people think like God was just joking in his word. I just don't think he is. I'm a Black woman who lives in the South and was told by my grandparents, Jewish people treated them better. And 2 Jewish men was killed in the 60s along with Black men. Put it up here. Mississippi, you are right. Thank you so much. Believe in hope. That's crazy. Believe in hope. That's wild. That petition is evil. I pray it doesn't gain any traction. Whether it resulted in BML or not has nothing to do with the fact that George Floyd was murdered. 100%. We all need the Lord Jesus, Black, white, left, 100%. Brother Kurt, I am pro-Israel, but I do not agree with the leadership and everything they do. I do not speak from all Black women, people, and Shapiro don't speak for all Jewish people. Love God. Amen. Amen. I agree. Rich, pop, pop. Pop, 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 pop. Man, I appreciate you, bro. Thank you so much, Rich. This is how much I appreciate y'all, man. I'm on a retreat, but I said, let me do a video for the folks real quick. What does his criminal history have to do with him being murdered? It has nothing to do with it. But you know what? That's the conservative logic. That's the conservative logic, is to say, if you have any criminal history, then this is why like people like Thomas Sowell and them, well, I respect Thomas Sowell's intellect on one level. Some of his stuff, white people love it, conservatives love it because he'll bring up all these things about Black people. But it's like, fam, if in his book, Black Rednecks and whatever, well, I forgot what the first part of it's called. If this is Thomas Sowell's premise that conservatives love to bring up, that Black people inherited basically a slave mentality from poor whites in the South, brought that with them to the North, right? And that's why the Black culture is like it is today. This is in the most simplistic terms, this is sort of what Thomas Sowell, one of his main points about the Black community today. And that the Democrats, Lyndon Johnson and the Great Society in the 60s, after Kennedy was assassinated, created the welfare state for Black people and did nothing for Black people. This is essentially one of Thomas Sowell's main lines, right? But then Thomas Sowell will say, and Candace Owens, and they will say this, they use his literature, they'll say this. In the 40s, after the first great migration, where Blacks went to like Chicago and Detroit area, right? They were flourishing, doing well. So the second generation came up, the second migration, and then that's when the community started to get poor, and because they couldn't house all these black communities. Thomas Sowell will say, long before the democratic policies in the 40s and 50s, black people had stable families, such and such, right? They had fathers in the home, people were working, all of it, right? So his point is, democratic policies destroyed the black community. And then he says, black people are the way we are now when they're ignorant in the streets because we inherited a slave mentality from poor whites in the South. So here's the problem then. If that's true, then why didn't the first migration and why were black people stable, working, and had jobs that Thomas Sowell will agree to in the 40s and 50s? Like if they inherited a slave mentality and an adverse view of the law, if that was inherited from slavery, then why didn't that go to Chicago and Detroit? And why was the black family stable in the 40s and 50s? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. But when you believe this stuff, you just believe it because that's what you're taught to believe. And because we're so theological, we don't think about factual. We just think, oh, look at it. He's black and he's disagreeing. And it's like, what does that mean? There's so many holes in this logic. It's more complicated than that. And that's why I'm glad to be a believer in Jesus Christ, because I know that when it's all said and done, he will restore all things and he will make it all right. And he will expose all of it. I don't have to figure it out. But what I'm not going to do is be a dummy. And I'm not going to choose sides because I'm black and from the street. I'm going to choose sides because I'm a believer and I'm trying to have the mind of Christ. I don't trust any of them because when you think about their ideologies, they're crazy. So many Christians now have syncretistically merged their political views, left and right, with their faith. And I think they don't realize you might actually be in danger. You might actually be in danger eternally, but what do I know? What do I know? I'm supposed to be on a retreat right now, and my button is stuck. Love God, love people, practice love Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. Believe in hope. And the button is stuck and won't let me. All right. A lot of folks nowadays have been given over to their own vain imaginations. Of the spirit, nothing less than madness and lunacy should be experienced. That might be the comment of the day, Shambler 79. All right, I got to get on this retreat. I'm not going to do another video until Thursday because I just need to spend some time with the Lord, get myself right, and just be with him. So thank you guys. Like and subscribe to the channel. If I lose a few of you, thanks for having supported up to this point. You can go research any of this. I could be wrong. This is just my thought. But you judge a tree by the fruit of the bears. I just don't want believers anywhere to just be hoodwinked and bamboozled by these folks. They do not care about what you care about if you're a Christian. They do not care if Jesus died on the cross, rose from the dead. They do not care. They want you to vote their vote because their hope is in political change. Our hope is to be changed by a person who is sovereign over politics. And so our job is to not fall for that. All right, I got to go. Appreciate y'all. We'll see y'all on Thursday. Like and subscribe. Thanks for the super chats. Appreciate you. Until next time.